Welcome to the CDP, the Commercial Directors Podcast, where we discuss all things commercial directing, treatments, pitching, problem solving on set, and commercial breakdowns. Now you host Evan Swinehart.
3, 2, 1, talk to me.
All right, here we go. All right, welcome to the show, everybody. Have a great episode. I'm very happy and excited to welcome Ekta Saran to the show. She is based out of Dubai and is represented by Equals Management. Ekta, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. Very, very excited to be on the show.
Yeah, I am. I'm like really excited. I was, watching a lot of your work and watching the spot we're going to break down, which is beautiful. And you produce work that I think is what I wish I was producing. It's beautiful. It's super, just creates a great feeling, I love all your camera work. So, I don't think I've ever said that on the show, but every time I watch one of your things, I was like, this is what I feel like I want to be doing is the work you produce. So, thank you so much for, inspiring me and, I'm sure a lot of others, but, let's just kind of, get right into it and start with kind of your origin story, how you got into this crazy industry.
It's a crazy story indeed. So I used to be in advertising too. I was a copywriter for almost a decade. I really enjoyed writing up to a certain point, and then, as everyone does, it became very toxic. The ideas that you present don't end up being yours. A lot of politics, and I was starting to get very, very tired of that whole thing. So the last agency that I was at, which was Low in Dubai, I got this gig where I would work there 3 times a week, and then the rest of the time I could do whatever I want. And for some strange reason, I had always been photographing things around me. I was never really serious about it, but I had a musician friend who was like, hey, I need to get some photos done. Would you mind taking some photos of mine? And I was like, yeah, sure, no worries. I did that. And then, they were nice, some outdoorsy stuff, some studio stuff. And then she was going to put out an album. She's going to start making an album, but she goes, I would love it if you did some behind the scene video stuff. And I'm like, I don't know video. And then she goes, well, just learn. Like, okay. So then at that point, which was almost now 12 years ago, and this is when, you had your Nikons and your Canons doing the rounds. You could pick up the camera. It was really easy to learn. And that's what I did. I bought my first camera, bought a couple of lenses, and then I cannot look at that footage anymore because it's so terrible, embarrassing. And she learned to edit, and then we started to put out these videos. And then I had a producer who called me and said, I really like the work that, you both are doing. I have this event thing. Would you mind kind of, co-producing it, but maybe shoot it a little? And I was like, yeah, sure. So my days off from the agency, I was doing production. I was a photographer's assistant. I was shooting. I was doing social media stuff that had just started to come up, and the clients wouldn't really know what to do with social media. But hey, but can you write the story and also shoot it and then also edit it? I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. Why not? It was easy money. And I said, yeah. And then it just started to escalate where I was getting a lot more work doing smaller gigs, and I was enjoying that a lot more because it was very, it felt like I had more agency. It felt like I was kind of creating something that had my own voice. And then I quit. The agency. It was very scary. No paycheck. But I said, no, I'm going to give this a shot. And I started to kind of get bigger and bigger clients and bigger briefs. And I realized unless I kind of really put my mind to DPing, I wasn't really cut out for DPing. And I felt like what happened in that process is that my love for directing, which meant my love for writing, came back again. And if that wasn't, confusing enough, let me just.
No, that was great. That was great. Yeah. And so when did you kind of realize like, not that you made it, but like, okay, this is going to work as a career. Like that change is super scary. So when did you kind of realize like, okay, or like there's always a moment where you're like, okay, I am a director, right? Like sometimes you're like, I don't know if this is who I am or not,
It's funny. I actually didn't realize it, but there's my DP who I collaborate with and we work very, very close together. He said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, because I was also that person on sets who was doing BTS. So I was on big director's set and just like, excuse me, do you mind if I can just do a little shot? And then I would run away. I had to be like very quiet. And then I became, I had my own sets. And then my DP said to me, he's like, you have to remember the fact that you have made it to a time when you were not even on the call sheet. And now you're on the top of the call sheet. And I was like, oh, he's like, so be grateful, because there are times where like my work sucks, nothing that I do is great, or, you have imposter syndrome so much of the time. And I think that's the thing that's kind of stuck with me. He's like, oh, yeah, I kind of did make it to the top of that call sheet. That's kind of cool. Yeah. Which is probably maybe 6 years ago, actually, properly, if I'm saying that. Yeah.
And when you first kind of like, okay, like your name's on top of the call sheet, what were kind of the jobs that you were seeing and were getting, like, how did you kind of make the shift to be doing what you're doing now?
Man, I was getting a lot of female briefs, and I hate this word because, you would get an email and it will say, hi, we're looking for a female director. And it would just like enrage me because I'm like, I would love to hear what the men are getting. Are they getting emails like, hi, we would really like a male director for... Anyway, no one says that, but there's definitely a female director on that. So I was getting a lot of those briefs. Look, so, they were, babies, detergent, fashion, beauty, anything that you can stereotypically think of as the women's department is what I was getting. And I think a part of me was, which is fine, everyone needs to build a portfolio, and I did that. But I think slowly I was also getting very enraged at the industry. And just FYI, in like Dubai itself, there's not a whole lot of female directors either. Maybe there are a lot more now than there were even like 4 years ago. But so I was also very determined to be like, no, I'm going to do that car commercial. I need to do a car commercial. I need to do things that are more technically challenging. I need my visuals to be super buttery, if that word makes sense, super cinematic. Every commercial, I really want to up my lighting, even if it's just an interview and if it's a guy just sitting and talking. How do we make this look spectacular? So I think I really kind of chipped away at it, that every single commercial that I worked on, whether it was, a detergent or whether it's, mama and, daughter in the kitchen cooking something, it just needed to look really beautiful. And it needed to have like that one money shot that would be like, oh, how did they do that? Right. So, yeah. And that's kind of what has driven me to that. I will now accept, even if it's I don't want to use a women-centric brief. Great. How do we make it amazing? How do we make it powerful? And how to make it like absolutely cinematic?
Yeah. Which is going to be one of the spots we break down, right? It's a spot for Braun, and it's like a shaver and looks like 2-in-1 washer. I don't know how you explain it here in a minute, but but it's an all female cast, but it feels like this spot is like super aspirational, and it feels like a almost like a destination piece, like a travel piece. It takes you to another place, but it shows I think women in a very positive light. And a lot of your work is a lot of female cast, but I think you're showing them in it like being like powerful, inspirational, and just authentic, right? It feels real to them. So is that purposeful too, and like how you're casting, or is that like in the briefs of these spots?
Casting can be a tough spot here too. We don't necessarily have a very big actor industry, if I can say that. So sometimes, and also let's also be very mindful of the fact that the industry that I'm in, especially the Dubai market, we have over 200 nationalities from across the world, right? So at any given time, we're trying to appease some very, very different sections. They need to tick off what they look like, what they're wearing, how they're dressing, what dialect they're talking in. All of that comes into effect. So sometimes there is a bit of a fight. Like, no, this is the person that I want because I can see it. I know that she's going to deliver despite her looking XYZ. So yes, it is very, very intentional. And even if, let's say, I don't get the vote of confidence when it comes to casting, and the agency and the client win, there is a separate shot list that my first AD is like, look, we're going to do these 4 shots very quietly, very, turn the monitors off. We're going to do this for me. And then that's what gets onto the DC.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool.
Well, it's interesting too. Like, I think that is insane, because I think about just, like what's usually happens, right? With, okay, we got to appeal to this. We need this to hit this demographic or this diversity. But to kind of appeal to like 200 nationalities would be insane. But with the bronze spot specifically, I thought it felt like very, it didn't feel like regional specific to me, which I think is really, really cool. Like, and even like the Nike spot, like, obviously it because of like your locations and wardrobe and whatnot. But it's still like, I feel like it could be anywhere. You know what I mean? Like well, I guess what I'm trying to say, it feels Nike. Like, it doesn't feel like, oh, this is just for this like region, which I think is really cool, because you're creating a feeling, which I think you do really, really well.
Thank you. Nike spot, it was very, we also got very lucky with the cast. So in that case, I was also coming from the client. They were very specific about who they wanted, but we had some amazing cast. Like, I can't speak highly enough about their attitude and how they were on set, but the one thing that we were all kind of also collectively very much agreed upon was the location. And I'm in love with Old Dubai. That I have like a love affair with Old Dubai. I feel like it has so much character. I'm not a big fan of the glitzy high rises and the fancy la la la. And I was just very adamant that we are going to shoot in Old Dubai. And I was so happy that the client was like, yes, absolutely, let's do it. And it worked. Yeah, no, it worked great.
You kind of mentioned Dubai being like a little bit of a boys' club, and I don't think that's unique. I know like where I am is definitely like that, and we're there's female, a lot of female crew members, but it's still like 70-30 on a set. So I'm just, what advice would you give to women who either are aspiring directors, even just like, grips, how to break into the industry and like kind of how to move up the ranks in whatever department they want to be in?
Yeah. For directors, specifically, I would say go out there and shoot your own stuff. Our phones now offer so much more than what they did even 7 years ago. Like, you can shoot a movie on it, right? So go out and create a style for yourself and, just create your own voice, which I think all of us will always hunt for. I feel like for the rest of our career, we're always like, no, I want to be this director. It's like, no, I want to do this now. I feel like that's always changing, but to then find that first kind of voice that gets you in is important. For any other technical crew, and what I've been doing is just write to other women directors because we want more women on our technical crew. I have a second AC I have two second ACs now who are on my sets a lot of the times. Sound recordists. I would love to have a woman who's a grip on my set. I haven't had that yet. So if you're out there, write to me, please. I think write to other women directors who want more women on set. We want to see more women on set. And this is in no way to be that we don't want men on our set. Like, I feel like that I should say that because I do come off as the other end, sexist debate. No, but I also, if we have more women on set, they will be trained and therefore we will, there will be equal opportunity, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what's fair.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have in Denver I would say our strongest department is G&E out here. We have a great G&E
Nice.
crews, and we actually have a lot of women-led G&E out here. So got to get you out to Colorado to do a shoot.
I was also sorry to interrupt you, but I think
No,
Sarah
you're great.
was on your. She was so great, by the way. I love her work.
She's awesome.
So funny and she's so charismatic. I was in love with that Peggy spot and I watched it so many times. Anyway, I'm not a comedy director, so anytime I see anyone directing comedy, I'm so in awe. And she had started something, if I'm not mistaken, in San Francisco, which was about women crew, right?
Yep. Yeah, she did. Yeah. She has a nonprofit, and I'm spacing it right now. But it's all about like women and LGBTQ crew members, and it's great because I have a someone who reached out to me who is in Denver, and I connected them. And
That's nice.
I don't know how that conversation went, but they talked about maybe starting a Colorado chapter. So hopefully that works out. You talked about like kind of the money shot, right? And getting always having one thing in a spot that is maybe something you've been kind of wanting or challenges you, and I couldn't agree more. It's kind of a motto of mine too. It's like, okay, even if this is like a shitty spot that'll never go on the reel, I got to find something that I can kind of like focus on, that like, okay, this is for me, right? Whether it's like a camera rig or a lighting technique or something like that. Can you kind of like talk more about that and your approach, how you kind of like find or think through these shots, and why that is important to kind of have that money shot?
So I try and put in that money shot right from the get-go in the treatment, and then I'll put it in like a couple times, and it's like this weird inception to be like, hey, this looks so good. And then when I'm presenting the treatment, I will talk about that, how great that shot is. And the reason why I do it is whether it's never going to make it to my reel or it's fantastic. I think personally, I just always want to push myself technically. And it also allows me to learn a lot more when I'm on set. Like when we were doing the bronze shoot, which, you'll come up, we had to create this rig. And I was like, I've never done this. I have no idea how this is going to work out. So it was important to me to get that right. Because at the end of the day, I'm learning, but at the end of the day, I feel like selfishly, it's my show reel also just gets better and better. And what I found out is that I honestly never wanted to be the transition director. But so many of my films have come off of the back of that Braun commercial to be like, oh, we can see that you can do this stuff, so can you do this? Mm-hmm. And then off the back of that, I did 3 other commercials that were only transition-led. So I had to then figure out every single thing technically. So I think the other mantra is you never know what it might lead to. Right? So you do something, it's that one shot, and someone's going to see that one shot and be like, oh, that's cool. I have a brief for this director who can also do this. So yeah, it's some sort of weird personal must sweat profusely to try and get this shot done because I have no idea how I'm going to pull it off right until the day of. And there'll be other problems that will show up that you never encountered while prepping for it, obviously, because on the day it might rain or the light that you needed is suddenly not working. And then the grip said that this rig would work, but now it's not working this way. So yeah, there's so many of those things that you're also constantly problem solving, but I feel like it just makes me a better skilled director, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you talked about, like putting that in the treatment right away, which I think is super smart. Have you ever had, do you ever get any pushback on those type of money shots from the client, or are they like, oh, that's really cool?
I do all the time. They're like, no, this is too complicated. Or it'll be the producer, we don't have the budget for it. And I'm like, no. Let me speak to my grip. Let me speak to my DP. We can make this happen. So yes, there are times when I've lost that money shot, and then that's it. That, you kind of go on. But most of the times it does make it. And it happens. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, let's talk about, you have another venture that you're also working on called Lobster. So tell us a little bit about Lobster and kind of the reasoning behind starting that and how that all came about.
Sure. So my husband works in strategy, and he also worked for an agency for 10 years and then also did not really like the agency environment. And then on the flip side, there's me. I'm here now. I'm a director. The question for me is always, okay, what's next? And I feel like as directors, and I don't know whether you get this, you never get the briefs that you actually want.
No.
Right? Yeah. And I hate this part of being a director because you're always waiting for that phone call to be like, hey, we know you really wanted to direct Sicario, so that's never going to happen, right? So how do you make that happen? And a part of that other problem is also the frustration of where the industry is at the moment. A lot of us, when we get scripts or boards, they're half-baked, unfortunately. Directors are asked to come up with the idea, or, my favorite word, develop and collaborate on the idea, which essentially means we are doing the entire board. We are coming up with the ideas, and then we may or may not win the gig, which is horrible. It's especially when you really give it your all and you're like, oh, I think this would be so good. Mm-hmm. And then it goes to someone who, I don't know. I don't know what happens to that, but it definitely feels very disappointing. So one of the things that I started to think of, I'm like, look, I can write. I have the agency background. I can come up with concepts. How do we reach out to clients directly and give this? It's a bit of a unique pairing. We haven't really seen a strategist and a creative duo anywhere really in the market either. So we thought that was maybe interesting. And it has been a very fulfilling process as well. I thought I would murder my husband working with him, but that has not happened as of yet. We do enjoy working with one another. And what I really love, and I didn't realize this, what I miss is the strategy bit of someone really doing the research and really digging into something and bringing me insight and being like, oh, what can you do with this, and come up with the script. And that's been a really nice process of really working. And I also don't feel so alone. I feel like I have a team that I can bounce off ideas with. So far we just started last year, and we've been super lucky that we ended up winning. We won 3 gigs so far. And it's been great because I got to write my own concepts. I got to write my own scripts. But I also am directing them, There might be a point where I might come up with the concepts and the scripts, and I don't feel like I'm the right fit as a director, and then we get someone else on board. But yeah, it's been great. And it's been usually with production houses who feel like they are getting the briefs, but they don't have the creative capabilities of providing what the client needs, but they can do the execution. And there's no way I want to get into production. Let the producers do, and they're great at it. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So are the production companies reaching out to you then with this problem, or are you going directly to the clients?
So far, it's been production houses have been reaching out to us.
Yeah. And it's like, and this is though the production is going direct to brand, correct? Or
direct. Yeah. And we are, again, don't want to call ourselves agency. We're not an agency, but we are the creative brain. And yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. Because it is something at my my past production company, we faced a lot, and it was really hard as a production company because you're like, okay, are we becoming an agency where you would, especially with direct to brand clients, they'd come to you and be like, oh, we want a video. How much does it cost? And you're like, wait, what? And you would put in all of this work up front to kind of figure it out. And then so much so that we ended up hiring a creative director, right? But it was so much like education and just a huge lift to try to get it. And but it was really rewarding just because the work feels like it's yours. You can really own it. And you develop that relationship, right? That is pretty, like, they'll come back to you, where with agencies, it's a bit of a one night stand, right? Like, they use you, then they're on to the next person, the next job. But I was like, this is really hard because we're a production company and we're being asked to do like a lot of creative, and like, we were creative people and whatnot, but it just was something that was super foreign. So I think that's really smart play, because I definitely saw a need for it at our past company.
I'm seeing that in a lot more production houses, though. I'm seeing this need for, we need to hire someone creative for the production house. Whereas a friend of mine was saying, actually, a couple of years ago, I feel like there was a different model where agencies were hiring, for example, in-house directors, in-house editors, and that's now shifted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Roles.
Yeah. No. And I really enjoyed it. I think what was hard with us was like the creative director we hired was amazing, but it was like, all right, he was clearly like a comedy, copywriter, and so then like all our work just became comedy, So it was like, okay, how do we change up the voice? Where before we hired him, it was like we would hire freelance copywriters all the time, just to come up with concepts and ideas, and I really did like that. That process, again, I think it's just a great way to kind of own the work. But let's talk a little bit more like what you are seeing like with the agency model, and why maybe this approach or going direct to brand, is might be the way of it already is happening, but it definitely, I can, like, so many directors we talked about before we got on are kind of getting burnt out a little bit by like the agency model, the constant pitching and bidding. I'm like really jaded by it right now. I just got used and abused on my last 2 pitches, and it was super stressful, and one even cost me a job because I was holding for this and never found out if we were awarded or not, and they were kind of ghosting us. And then I found out from the production company I lost to, because I knew the producer, was like, hey, have you heard from the agency? And they're like, oh yeah, we were awarded. But I was like holding those dates. Meanwhile, I was shortlisted on another job, and then it got back and they had moved on for me, So it's definitely rough, where I think if we can kind of almost control it a little bit more with direct to brand there.
I mean, look, there's no, there is a certain role that an agency plays, right? Like, you are leading the client. You are consultants to the client basically for their brand, right? What their brand should do, what they shouldn't do. But unfortunately, what has happened, in my personal opinion, and I feel you, a couple weekends ago, I spent an entire weekend working on a pitch, and then the client decided 2 days later that we're just not going to go ahead with the project. And I was like, right. Anyway, so yeah. But I think what has happened, and I don't know who came up with this model of, we are going to pitch with 10 directors, and then 10 of them are going to do 50-page treatments.
Yeah.
And it's going to have to be done in 3 days.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go silent, and we may or maybe not win the job. And I feel like there's this communication gap that is slowly also widening. When I come into with an agency and I want a job, and then, you know, because I'm not in direct contact with the client, I will get all these things like, no, but the client said you can't do this. And the client said you can't, no, the client will be very upset. So in my head, I'm making this client out to be this, you know, 7-headed monster with like claws. And then I show up on set and they're so nice and they're so sweet. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
There's also this weird communication gap. And I'm like, I don't know whether that's the politics of the agency model or whether that is actually the client. But I don't want to be part of that, because I feel like as directors, you just get sacrificed over and over again. And it's not fulfilling. And nor is it, you know, it's not a career that a lot of us want to be in. There's so many directors that have quit in the last 5 years because, like, this is not feasible for me. I have a family, pay bills. I can't be doing like 25 treatments, not get paid for any one of them, and not win any job.
Yeah.
So I feel like the model needs a little bit of a restructure, and it's not about taking jobs away from agencies in any way, but it's also about kind of making a living yourself, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah, I know. I think that's funny, like, because I feel the exact same way about, like, last 2 jobs was working with an agency, and same thing. It was just like the client. I was like, ooh, man. And then so I'm talking to my producer and AD, like, you know, offline, like, I'm a little worried about the client based off of how they're presenting them. We need to make sure, like, we kind of have our communication down on set. We have a busy day. We can't have them, like, you know, saying these things and slowing us down. And then I get on set and they're amazing, you know, and I love them. And they're just like, you know, you're the expert, whatever you want to do. And I'm like,
Yeah.
where did this come from? You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
I definitely think there is a gap there. And it is a big problem to solve. And you know, we had Scott from Equals on talking about this exact thing. So definitely go check out that episode to learn more about it. But let's dive into your bronze spot here and break it down and talk about the money shots and everything in this gorgeous piece. I am going to share my screen. All right, perfect. All right, so this is called The Holiday, and it is for Braun, and I am going to play it down real quick.
Wish I could stay here forever.
With up to 4 weeks of smooth skin, what would you do?
All right. Well, let's start off with how this job came about. You know, like where did it come from? You know, what was the initial brief like?
So the brief came in when I was almost about to go on holiday. I was about to go see my father, who lived in Nepal at the time. So I pitched for the job. I didn't pitch for it. No, I was shortlisted, and then I found out in Nepal they're like, "Great, you have 3 days to do the treatment." And I was like, "Oh my!" I honestly, I will probably should not admit this. It was an 8-page treatment that I quickly put together. And I was like, yeah, I get the job, cool. Because I just really I wanted to be on holiday. And the only thing that they said that it should be a POV spot. And I found a really interesting reference. And I said, okay, let's put this in there. And then I forgot about it. And they actually did go quiet for about a month. I said, okay. And then I come back and I follow up. And I had found out that I had won the job. Now, I feel really bad saying that I did not work as hard as on the treatment, because usually the treatment really allows you to visualize the film and you know exactly what you're going to do, right? But now that I had won the job, and it was like, shit, I got to figure out exactly what needs to be done. The second thing about this job is that due to budget constraints, we couldn't actually travel anywhere.
Yeah.
So this film is shot in the country, but in different emirates. So that was going to be a challenge as to how do we kind of make this piece look like she has been traveling. And that was one of the biggest kind of challenges of this piece, plus the POV aspect of it.
Yeah, that is crazy, because it does feel very, like I said, it feels like a travel piece. Like when you first kind of read the script, you know, like what excited you about it, and was there like, you know, what was kind of like that, like, again, maybe like, you know, I feel like every job kind of has like this like aha moment, right? Like maybe there's a script or a piece of the shot where like you're like, oh, okay, this is cool, and I can start working from, you know, from here.
Yeah. So it was the POV, the POV aspect of it that really drew me in. And this mirror shot was never supposed to happen. So she was never supposed to be seen except right till the end. And I was like, no, we need to establish that it's her. And she's also a great performer. And I was like, no, we need to see her from the get-go. How do we do that? We see her in the mirror. And the way this shot was sold to the client was like, as soon as she sees herself and then we see the product, like, okay, yeah, that's fine. So it was the POV. And then once I had won the job, I was like, okay, how do we make it complicated? And because I wanted to make it complicated, and it was this mirror shot that was okay. And my DP and I, who I've mentioned before, Tom, he and I talk a lot. It was like, how do we do a mirror shot? We're always like, oh, he always wants to do a mirror shot. So I'm like, okay, here you go. This is your mirror shot. And this was complicated. Like I can still see the rig, and that still kind of bothers me. But we first, for the other shots, so the other POV stuff that you see from in the rest of the film, we created this kind of headgear that she wears, and then the camera would kind of rest up here. And we also shot with a Komodo, so it was easily kind of we can take parts off, so it wasn't too like big and heavy. But with that opening shot, that was the one that was tough, and we had to try a couple different versions until we finally had a vest and like a really large shirt that she wore, and there was a hole in it that we eventually kind of, you know, painted everything out. So, yeah.
That's funny. I was wondering how you did this shot, and you know, I figured there was some painting out of things, but I didn't realize like she had the rig on, and then you were saying, "Oh, I can see it," and now I just finally found it. Like that, it's under her shirt a little bit. But it's crazy because I never picked it up like watching. You know, and I've probably watched this thing now like 10 times until you called it out. So
good.
Yeah. Well, and like, you know, with your background as a writer, like when you got that, like how much of this was like boarded or like in the brief versus like kind of like ideas you brought, you know, was it a lot of like, you being like, oh, it'd be cool if like this scene we did this, or like maybe she does this, or like how did that whole thing kind of work out?
They were very loose with the brief. I'll be honest with that. And the client was very cool. Both the client and the agency were super duper cool. They're like, look, we need to showcase a couple different locations. And then within that, whatever, if you have ideas, we can kind of incorporate that. And I was like, okay, great. So this is what I want to do. And also, let's note that the client cut was 30 seconds.
Yeah, maybe.
I wanted this to be much longer because I wanted to kind of keep the holiday aspect of it kind of going on and on, because you really kind of get into a vacation mood in some sort of the longer you see it. And that's
Absolutely.
really what I wanted to accomplish. And especially kind of establish the different environments, not just have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but at least have, 3 to 4 different shots per location and some interesting shots. So I did bring a lot of it. This butterfly was a real pain.
Yeah.
It's not a real butterfly, but our art was very slammed. Like, she did a great job overall, but she was like super slammed on like a lot of things. So actually, there's a butterfly garden here, and they sell those frames. Those frames where you have dead bugs that they mount them. By the way, the cat was not supposed to be a part of the board either. We ended up shooting in one of the producer's house, which was really perfect, and her cat was in the bedroom. And I was like, can we use her? Is she fine to be on set? It's like, nah, she's super cool, no worries. I'm like, yeah. And it just made it a little bit more homey and a little bit more cozy. So yeah, the cat made it in there.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I love this shot. I absolutely love the cat shot because it does exactly what you just said. Like, I think it just brings this like realism. It's relatable, and it adds production value because you're kind of like, how did they get that cat to be still for that? And the same thing with the butterfly. I was wondering about that shot.
No, really. I actually wanted. It was weird. I actually wanted a beetle.
Yeah, okay.
Because of the color, it would like really pop, but couldn't find one. And also, something else to add to this, this was shot in the middle of July. The middle of July in Dubai is hot. It's 50 degrees, if not more. So Fahrenheit is probably 100. We got so lucky that it rained on the 2 days that we were shooting.
Wow.
This beach, which usually will have no cloud cover, and it'll be just like really flat, awful light. We had this full kind of like clouds and light just filtering through. This is unreal. Like, this, to get this weather in July is not realistic at all. But
that's awesome.
He somehow got lucky. It was like the gods were like, yes, here you go. We bless you with rain. Here you go.
Yeah.
And yeah.
When, like, what, I'm curious, like, what was kind of like the, like, emotion and feeling that you were trying to go with and trying to get like viewers to feel? Because this is like, I love spots like this where like the product becomes like secondary, and it creates an emotion, but because of that, I relate to that product more so than if it was shoved down my face, which is, I don't think is like what clients realize. They want to show product. We got to show the product in the first 3 seconds, but you want people to have an emotional connection to your brand, and sometimes not showing the product at all does that. That's what this does for me. Like, I now think of Braun differently because of this spot, but I'm curious how those conversations went with, client and agency, and what was that kind of emotional tone you wanted to set? And then like, how was the client with like showing the product and stuff like that?
So 2 different conversations. So with the product, that they were also okay with, we needed to show it in the first 5 seconds, which happens, and we need to show usage. And I was like, yeah, that's cool, no worries. And then it shows up right at the end. To be honest, as a director, that kind of made my life quite easy, that if I don't need to see the product over and over again, I can then dive right into the emotional aspect of this holiday that she needs to be on. But the conversation about music and sound design is something that I wanted to really push, because I was also getting very tired of voiceover spoken in a certain way. And, the soundtrack, upbeat soundtrack. And I was like, no. So I will say that's a conversation that I couldn't win. This is the DC that you're seeing. I ended up doing the sound design and the music separately. And I feel like maybe the reason why you feel emotionally connected to it is that I wanted to use a track that was heavy on sound design, actually. And the track was actually secondary. So you hear their voices, you hear their thoughts, you hear their, you hear the environment. And I was very, very influenced by Leigh Powis at that time, because I had watched, I forget the name of the brand. I forget the name of the brand because the brand was barely in the commercial. And I was like, I don't want to do a VO because this just makes zero sense for a film like this. We need people to travel somewhere. And for that to happen, that needs to be sound design. So, yeah, that is something that I really pushed for, which I didn't win. But I figured it out for the DC.
Yeah. And how many days was this?
3 days. It was a 3-day shoot. So we shot 2 days outdoors, and in different parts of the UAE, and then the last, like all the shower and the product, blah blah blah, that happened on day 3.
Okay, cool. And then when you are like, sorry, I'm just taking a quick note. Let me go to this. Like, going back to these product shots too, because it's like in the original cut, right? Like the agency cut. How many of like these scenes are actually in that cut?
The product shots?
No, sorry. Just like any of like these, like, let's call it locations, I should say. Like, how many locations are in the agency cut?
The agency cut has all the locations, but it doesn't have the amount of shots that I've put in.
Yep.
Right. And then the other thing that I also kind of changed up a bit was I put in some shots of the protagonist. So technically it's not 100% POV, but because I was getting such great expressions, the three of them really bonded, which is was so great. So there's this one scene where they're in the city and she's leaning back, or like she's sleeping, and then she gets irritated. That's all kind of on the fly. It was not on the board. We was just it was improv. And she had such great expressions. I love the shot when she says, when she wins Uno. Again, that was just improv. I kind of gave them things to do and just have fun. And a lot of these shots were just pickups. Some of them didn't make it into the client cut, but some of them did. So I also kind of shifted the POV aspect of it, because I feel like if we don't see her, you're not going to really have an emotional connection either. And also the camera just loved her. Like, she was so great on camera.
Yeah.
So I needed to really see her. Yeah.
I mean, okay, I was going to ask you a question, but let's go, because I was going to ask you your approach to working with the talent, because that's what I love about this, is it doesn't feel commercial at all.
Yeah.
Like, this feels very believable. I mean, I hate to use authentic because it's just used all the time, but it is, right? It feels natural. Their performance doesn't take me out of this. It sucks me in. So like, how do you kind of get some of these great moments and looks? Like, what is your approach to working with actors? I
will usually have a conversation before the shoot day, like with the main. So unfortunately, one of the girls actually felt sick. So we had someone else sub for one of the other girls.
Oh, wow.
With the friends. But with her, she and I had we had a conversation about what are the things I want out of it. And then, she was this was also targeted at a certain like Gen Z kind of generation. So I'm also kind of asking her, what do you do with your friends or whatever, just like some questions to try and understand her mindset. And then on set, we would just have a discussion. I said, okay, I think with this scene, for example, the underwater shots, this was great because I had told her to just have fun with the camera. And that's exactly what she did. Like, she was no holds barred. She had gotten very comfortable, and, we got some really kind of funny moments that I had not scripted them. So it's a combination of like telling them kind of what I'm looking for, but also allowing them a little bit of, improv, have some fun, just talk, and it was great that the cast themselves kind of got along really well. So I feel like a lot of elements just really came together for me. It's not something that I could have planned, honestly.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like there's sometimes like it's like these simple shots, like there's shots that I think, I was calling them like frames between the frames, like these little quick moments that always stand out to me that I love. This look right here, I absolutely love this quick look right here. Yeah. It's so good.
Okay.
And then there's this other one that, I don't know why, this one I love too, this moment.
Oh, thanks.
Like just coming back into here, like, and I don't know if you planned it, but like, because this probably like, most people wouldn't keep this, but like I just like love this moment kind of going back to the floor. I don't know why.
Yeah, so that was a reverse. Obviously, I've reversed it. Yeah. So, and somehow in the edit, I wanted to kind of bring it back, like she's coming back home. Yeah. And I didn't want it to keep going forward. Now I wanted it to come back. And what had also happened with that airplane window shot, so my DP had shot this on his camera on his flight. So he was in Sri Lanka at the time. And he was like, oh man, I got this perfect shot of this beautiful skyline, the sun dipping. I'm like, do it. Like, whatever, just send it over to me. I'll make it a part of the edit. Just really worked out. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool. And I actually didn't realize that was in reverse. And like, cause that is so cool. Cause like, yeah, like I was like, oh, I love that she kind of comes back in here. Yeah. It's another quick moment when they're in this kind of hiking scene. Where is it? It's just like this quick cut you have in here. Oh, it's right there.
Yeah. So that was the jump.
Yeah. Right. Let's see. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I was a copycat in that moment. It was something I had seen in another commercial, and I was like, I want it. I want to do that. Yeah. I always will have. So yes, there were like, the board was pretty loose. We wanted some very specific interactions that the client wanted and the agency wanted. And then I had my own little shot list, like, okay, we're going to do the jump. We're going to have like some close-ups of the skin. We're going to have the butterfly. We're going to have some interactions. So yeah, there was a separate shot list that also made it. Like, for example, the legs in the water, which feels like a hot water. Yeah, that was on the separate shot list.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think is.
That was the end of the day. That was the last shot of the day.
Yeah, I love all this just like extra little texture in here. So when you are like, let's go back to the beginning. Like when you get the brief, right? You've been awarded. What's kind of your approach? Like, how do you start like planning for a shoot like this?
I think every project is definitely different, but once I have just the brief, or when I've won the.
Once you've won it, right, and you're like, okay, now it's like, how do we do this? How do we bring the treatment to life?
Right. So the first discussion will be about that money shot, because there's always that money shot, and I need to figure out how to do it. Do we have the budget? If we don't have the budget, can we do it on something smaller and then make it work? So that's the first discussion. Shot list is quite important to me. I'll be, I have a Word doc, and the shot list kind of goes on there, which has a transference to the board. So the storyboard artist will usually just board it all up. And then once my AD and I and my DP have kind of gone through it all, then I'm doing a separate shot list to kind of make the film mine, which I know will perhaps maybe not fly with the client or the agency.
And when you like, because this is the director's cut. I just had this conversation yesterday with a buddy and about director's cuts because he's like, he doesn't believe in director's cuts.
Sure.
And I see both sides to it, but I'm curious, like with this director's cut in particular, when you are, like how many jobs has this one, or not how many, but have you gotten more jobs from this cut or the agency cut, would you say?
Then it's this cut, probably. Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, because we were.
Sorry, I feel
No, go
like
ahead.
I understand they shouldn't be a director's cut. Ideally, in an ideal world, they just shouldn't be a director's cut. But
Right.
sometimes, and well, most of the times, I feel like it becomes a taste. It becomes a
Yeah.
question of taste. So now I'm just very kind of. So, for example, grade. I love a good grain in my grade, but I also
Yeah.
know that a lot of clients like it very clean. But
Yep.
that's not my aesthetic. So now that I've started to work with a particular colorist that I do have a relationship with, and my editor will manage like sometimes some of the posts, I'm like, hey man, look, can we send a couple of options? One option will be my option, which is like maybe a little bit heavy on the grain, a little bit more moody, a little bit more kind of crunchy, and said, let's keep this aside, please. And once this job is over, can you please grade the DC? So these are the conversations I'm having. So could you please do it? If you can't, what can I pay you? Let me know what the budget is for this. Can we get this done? And the same conversations are happening with the sound designer, because I feel like sound and music are so important, and somehow they get on to the bottom of the
Yeah.
budget pile, and they're not just given importance. And I feel like sound design more than anything is also quite important to me. So, which sometimes is not important to the client, right? Like they have certain tick boxes. I have certain tick boxes. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the grade, because that's actually one of the first things I thought the first time I watched it was like, man, I love this grade.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
such a beautiful grade. Who's your colorist?
I work with a few. Nike was Josh Borrell. I think he's based in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. And I think, and Braun was, wait, sorry, I forget the name. It was
you're good.
Brett Rayner, who's also brilliant. He's graded a few of my short films. He's based in the UK. So these are kind of like my two relationships that I've built over time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to ask earlier, was going back to kind of these product shots. I like that they don't feel like traditional product spots in a way. You know what I mean? Like it fits the whole tone of the piece, right? It's not like, oh, now we need this really high gloss commercial feeling, thing to show our product. So, how did you how do you convince the client to do that? And then is that consistent to the agency cut, or is this like more of like a grade thing?
So we also had photography on set. So they had they had a lot of like these super typical commercial clean, way too lit product shots.
Yeah.
And I think I got away with the shots in the film being more cinematic because of that.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think the film needs it, because it's so beautiful, and it's you kind of lose the audience if you're gonna do like that stereotypical kind of a product shot. And it worked.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. Like, not usually will I geek out about a women's razor, but I just like loved how these shots feel. Like, it didn't feel weird to me, that we're seeing this. Like, it just felt like kind of like her self-care as like she's like, getting ready for a day. It fits the spot. Feels natural, and then we kind of go down to this that sends us right into travel, right? Like I thought this was a really clever transition, of like, okay, how do we tie brawn and, like shaving and like, self-care to then, okay, she's about to go on a trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
she was, sorry. So
yeah,
then we had a lot of discussions around what the note was going to be about, because it needed to kind of relate it back to this reveal that it's going to be about like she's going somewhere. So mom is, but this came from the agency. I cannot take any credit for this whatsoever. But the connection of the transition was something that I had to figure out. How do we kind of get her from here to the outside world? And that's,
very cool.
Her passport.
Yep. All right. Is there any other things you would kind of want to like talk about, like in this spot that we didn't hit? Like what was maybe the most challenging shot, that you didn't expect, and kind of how did you solve that problem?
I think the mirror shot was definitely something that we had to really work on. And even though we had prepped for it in days prior and gear check, it took a lot of wiggling. So I think that I shared some photos with you if you want to. We did a couple
pull those up
of how we kind of resolve that.
Yeah, let's see.
And also, the POV shots with just her when she had to wear, which you'll see, we created this rig. It also got really hot after a while, so she couldn't wear it for a long period of time. And she was also a tiny person, so we had to kind of make sure she was balanced. Yeah, so that's me trying it on.
Oops.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was me trying it on, and that was the rig that we used across different locations on the beach and at the resort and other spots. But again, we took the shot, and then she'd be like, I need to take it off. So we would take it off and then give it a bit of a rest and then, reset. So it was heavier than I thought it would be. And yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because like whenever I've worked with a helmet rig like this, it definitely is something too, I feel like, with certain talent, right? Like, like having kind of the neck strength and whatnot. And I've had one where it was like the woman and she kept leaning to the side, because it was too heavy.
Yeah.
Because like you probably had a counterweight on the back of this, I imagine.
We had someone like right behind her and just holding on to her and making sure that, she would be fine. The other problem was also she has beautiful curly hair, and I also needed that curly hair for the shot. So she couldn't wear the helmet for too long because it would also get pretty sweaty and then your curls. Yeah. So yeah, there were definitely issues with that. And if you actually go down to the last thing, you'll see this is where we started. This was our
wow.
And I was like, I don't think this is gonna work.
Yeah
We needed to be nimble. We also needed to be slightly run and gun, not too much run and gun, because we had a few setups. But yeah, we had a few different versions that we kind of worked with, and even then on set, you encounter things that you don't, because you can wear the rig for 1 minute. You're like, yeah, this is great. The image looks great. But when you're outdoors and you have to walk, and then you have to walk 10 steps, and you have to walk 20 steps, and then you start to realize that the image is shaky, the actor is getting uncomfortable. So yeah, but these are things you can't predict.
Right. Yeah. With the helmet rig, did you find that there was like just natural stabilization because of like a human's head, or did you have to do any kind of stabilization with the helmet rig?
No, it felt very natural and it was exactly the POV look that we wanted, as opposed to trying different things with my DP being very close to her, or maybe like the chest rig and all of that. Just, it felt too rigid. Like the chest rig felt too rigid. The DP next to her felt not believable. And this is something that just felt, it's like, okay, we're getting the exact visual that we wanted.
Yeah. And you said you went with a Komodo, right? That's
yes.
what you said?
Yep.
And then for like lensing, what was kind of like your thought behind like lensing of this piece?
I usually leave those decisions to my DP. We wanted some beautiful kind of portraits, so we had like, I think it was like an Airy Cineplex 35 mils for a lot of like the close-ups. But we didn't do any super wides. I think we were on 35s, 50s. My DP is probably gonna kill me because I don't remember exactly.
No, but
Yeah.
that's interesting because I would have thought like a lot of those images, like a lot of like the POV stuff looked wider to me. But that's cool that it was not, because that's sometimes I always like worried, is it going to feel too fisheye? You know what I mean? Like or like too wide. I feel like a lot of people would lean to on a piece like this.
No, I think we had a couple wides. I think there's a shot where you see through the the girls are sitting on the mountains and you kind of push in. That was probably the widest. But I think other than that, we stayed quite. And I think the reason that choice was also made was because there's a reason why it feels super intimate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, it's from our post guy.
Yeah, this is the mirror shot. Okay, so this you had so this you kind of rigged in front of her off of her chest. So was it this vest that we showed earlier? Was it that rig, or was it kind of a different variation of that?
We broke it down to make it smaller. So that's not the exact rig, but we broke that down to make it smaller. And the mirror shot, there was one specific rig, which is this one that we used, which we knew was going to be the hardest. And we kind of left it to the last day. And we were chatting to our post guy as to what he could do and what he couldn't.
Yeah. And then did you have to get like a few plates of this?
Yeah.
To make it work?
Yeah. So it was her. We actually also got her without the rig. And then we also had the entire environment on its own with the camera. And then of course the camera was painted out. So yeah, we spent, I think, a good 2.5 hours on this shot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because it needed to be right. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you guys plan for that kind of time in the schedule, or was it kind of just like, okay.
Yeah, because that day was going to only be the bathroom shots, the shower shots, the product shots, so everything to do with the product and the mirror shot. That's it. We didn't want to do too much else because I was also worried of how much time this would take. And we had photography on the side, so that kind of worked out.
Yeah. On a shoot like this too, do you storyboard this whole thing, or is it kind of just like scenes and you're just going to kind of play within those scenes?
As I said, I think there was a scene, there was like a very rough board as to what we would really, 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 really need to get, like some very, very important shots, which obviously is the product and the water stuff. For example, her flipping and like kind of going underwater, that's a bonus. Like that's a my shot. But like her chilling with the friends in the mountains, that's on the board. So yeah, it was a bit of a loose board. There was some very mandatory shots that we wanted. And then there's my wish list, which is a bonus.
Cool. All right, awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to kind of talk about this spot? Otherwise, we can jump to the lightning round.
No, that's
awesome.
It's done. Right. Thank you.
Cool. All right, awesome. Well, let's get to the lightning round. So these are meant to be kind of like quick hitting questions. So number one is what directors inspire you? And this can be commercial or film.
Okay. There's I've written down a few of the commercial directors that I really love. Kim Gehrig is top of the list. Like she is just what she does technically is just so beautiful. She recently did a spot for John Lewis, the 100 Years, which takes through time. That's just unbelievable. Like, it is so beautifully done, and I don't know how they pulled it off, like, technically. It just really blows my mind. Stephanie Soho is great. Sandra Winter, I love her work. Haya Wasim is another amazing. She does, like, really beautiful storytelling narrative work, which I really love. Lana Al-Sanawi is cool. She's this Egyptian director. Yeah, these are some of the commercial directors that I love. And then film-wise, Chloe Zhao is an amazing one. Currently, I don't know if you watched this year's, there was an Iranian film that's Oscar nominated called It Was Just an Accident by Jafar Panahi. I mean,
No, I haven't seen it.
it's very timely for now.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful director. Like, just like what he does with storytelling is just so aspirational.
What was that one called again?
It Was Just an Accident.
I'm going to make a note of that.
And Joachim Trier, I feel like that is not how you pronounce his name because he's Norwegian. The guy who did The Worst Person in the World and
Oh, yeah.
Sentimental Value. He's amazing. I just love the way he writes. Like, his scripts are just very beautifully done. Yeah.
Awesome. And then what inspires you outside of directing?
I try and get out quite a bit. I mean, we have weather here which is treacherous, so like 6 months of the year, but we also have some beautiful weather and we have amazing beaches like 20 minutes away. I try and be near the water or in the water. Swimming is a big one. I haven't done any dive trips recently, but diving is another way to just really... Something about being underwater and just having a complete disconnection from it is really great. I'm a big reader. My husband and I have a competition every year as to who reads. How many books one reads in a year. So yeah, I think reading is another one, something that I've really carried through my childhood. It's like always been a big reader. And yeah.
All right, real quick, what's your book reco for everybody?
Oh, so many. I would always recommend My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante.
I just bought that. That's hilarious.
There you go. And do you know there's an HBO show?
Yeah.
That show, every frame is a painting. Like, it is so beautifully shot. You have to watch that show.
Okay, yeah.
Books first.
Okay, it's so funny. I have my little tangent. I have like a book club with a bunch of guys I went to high school with, and I picked that because I was like, none of these guys would ever read this book, so I picked that book.
Love that.
So.
I will give you another recommendation, which I feel like someone should make a film or a show about this. It's I don't know whether she's Swedish. Anyway, she's Scandinavian. This is author called Solveig Ball. On the calculation of volume.
Okay.
She has written 7 books. Only 3 of them have now been released. And it's about a woman who is stuck in the 18th of November.
Oh,
She
wow.
keeps repeating the day over and over again. And every book is released on the 18th of November. And it's super cool. Yeah, very. I was
really
like, how
cool.
can you write 7 books about this? But I've read all 3 so far, and they're brilliant. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'll have to check that out. Okay. All right. So what tool can you not live without? So this is pre-production tool, production, or post tool?
I am old school. Unfortunately, I feel like there was something about putting pen to paper, and I was like, I should get an iPad. Or my friend has this. It's a really cool. It's like an electronic notepad where you can actually. It works like a journal. What's it called? And I keep telling myself, yeah, maybe I should get that. But there's something about just writing, just the physical act of writing, I can't seem to get rid of. So I have tons of notebooks.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I also like how they look when they're done. When you finish a
Yeah.
notebook, like
Yeah.
it's a very visual, cool piece, you know?
Transference of your brain in some way. Yeah.
Yep. No, I love that. So we have a tradition on this show where we always have the previous guests leave a question for the next guest. Our previous guest wants to know about food. They talk about how one of the perks of this job is we get to go to all these different places and you eat a lot of food. So what was the best meal or restaurant that you have been to because of directing or being on set because of a job?
Okay, this is really weird. So I'm a bit of a foodie myself. I can bake. This director thing doesn't work out. I could bake it anyway. So we have one particular catering company that mostly every production house uses. So every time we hear that, we're like, oh, okay, cool. I guess we're gonna eat here again. But on 2 projects ago, I got to eat with this catering company called Let's Eat. And I was like, okay, it's cool. It's like, let's eat. And they had a cheese and tomato sandwich that was so spectacular that reminded me of my childhood. Do you know what I'm saying? I was like, oh my God, I must have more. And I don't think I had that moment from Ratatouille, when the critic is eating that food and it's like, takes him back to his childhood. That's exactly what I felt like. So shout out to Let's Eat and that cheese and tomato sandwich. It's probably the best thing that I ever ate.
I love that. And it's always like the simplest food, right? Like my wife made this meal and I was like, oh my God, this reminds me of this dish my dad used to make when we'd go backpacking. And she thought it was an insult because it was so simple, but it was like, I'm like, no, it's so like nostalgic and takes me back to like a warm place. So I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's your turn. If you would now leave a question for our next guest.
So my question is, if you couldn't do film, if you couldn't direct or do commercials, what would you be doing?
That is a great question and something I think about every single day. So couldn't be more relevant. Well, Ekta, I really appreciate your time and your work that you're bringing to the world is, like I said, truly inspiring. So thank you so much for coming on the show and really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I wish you becoming the best commercial director podcast in the world.
Yeah, me too. I hope so. There's times I'm like, oh, why are we doing this? But it is fun, and you're like a perfect reason of why I do this. It's great to meet people like yourselves. I'm truly inspired. So thank you. Keep up the great work, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, that does it for another show. Thanks for watching the Commercial Directors Podcast, and please subscribe to the show on any of the platforms where you listen to your podcast. And on YouTube. YouTube's a great place where you can actually watch the breakdown. So make sure you subscribe. Also, give us a follow on the gram at the Commercial Directors Pod. And please DM us there. We would love to hear from you on potential guests you'd like on the show and what topics you want to learn more about. Or you can email me at evan@swinehartco.com. And that's SWINEHARTCO.com.